Do you ever wonder if you're being a little too picky in your relationships, that you're so determined not to settle that you're actually being a little too picky? Listen, I can help you figure this out. My name is Stacey Speller, and I am a relationship expert, and I help ambitious women just like you have the life and the love of their dreams. So be sure to subscribe to my channel so you'll make sure you get notified every time there's a new video. Okay, so let's take a look at this, because it's really hard to sometimes analyze and say, am I being too picky? But in the back of your mind, you're like, I refuse to settle. And I'm here for that, girl. Do not settle. I am a proponent of not settling. But the flip side of that coin is that you have to make sure you're not being overly picky. Now, you may have friends that say, girl, you're just too picky. And you're like, nope, I'm not settling. But I want to give you 3 things that you can really consider that's going to help you decide if you're being too picky or if you're just standing your ground and you're not willing to settle. So the first thing is that, are you putting more emphasis on having chemistry with him or having connection with him? So what does that actually look like? Chemistry is like, oh, I am just so attracted to him, and you've got these specifics of what you want him to have in order to be attracted to him. Maybe he's got to look, he's got to be a certain height and a certain eye color and a certain swag about him. Like, it's all about chemistry. But the problem with chemistry is it's a physical. It's a feeling that just takes care of the physical, like you're basically the eye candy, right? But connection, when you're relying on connection, the connection is saying, okay, is this somebody who I can actually connect with on an emotional, on a spiritual, on a mental level? Because you're not just a physical, you don't have just physical attributes. You actually have mental and emotional and spiritual needs, which actually, truth be told, for a long-term relationship is going to be far more meaningful. So ask yourself, am I so overly concerned with chemistry? Because I've had clients and I've been there myself, where it's like, well, you have to have chemistry in a relationship. You should have chemistry, but let me help you with this little truth. Chemistry can be created when he treats you like the queen that you are. Now, that doesn't mean there shouldn't be any chemistry, but chemistry has the potential to grow based on how he shows up in the relationship, how he treats you, how he values you, makes you feel seen, heard, and valued. Chemistry grows from that. So think of chemistry almost as like a seed where it gets planted and it grows. But if you're so determined where it's got to be this overwhelming fireworks level of chemistry right from the beginning, that's a sign that you're probably being too picky, and you need to focus more on the type of man that you can actually have a connection with. Because we're here to build meaningful, long-term, life-lasting relationships, not chemistry. Chemistry is for just a hookup. We're here for connection, which is a lifetime, okay? So, are you paying too much attention to chemistry and not enough attention to connection? So the second thing that can help you really understand, are you being too picky, is, do you have a clear understanding of your preferences versus your priorities? Now, your priorities are like your deal breakers. You want a man who loves God. You want a man who has a good relationship with his mother. You want a man who's not cheap, because a cheap man will never invest his time, energy, and emotions into you. Those are priorities. A man who's emotionally available. Those are priorities. A family man, if you know you want to have children, a family man who values those type of things. Those are priorities. But when we're not clear on our priorities and we start mixing them in with our preferences, that's when we start going over into being too picky. So a preference could be something like, how does he style his hair? A preference could be, what type of clothes is he wearing? A preference could be, just what kind of food does he like? Those are all just preferences that are subject to change. And again, they're not the things that build a lasting relationship. So you've got to ask yourself, am I focusing more on the priorities, which are the things that really matter? Or am I putting way too much emphasis on the preferences? Because preferences will have you getting so specific that now you're out unicorn hunting because you've got these preferences that are just so overwhelming that there's probably not even a guy who has all of those different things. And so you want to be a lot more general again, and that becomes priority based, not preference based. Think of preferences. You know what? It's nice to have, I want him to be 6 foot, 4 inches tall. Well, that's a preference, but if he's 6'1" and he's a great guy, that's okay, right? So make sure that you're really clear. Am I having preferences or priorities? Because if you are leaning into preferences, then chances are you are being far too picky and it's keeping you from a great guy. And the third thing is that you're using judgment instead of discernment. So judgment always has to assign a right or a wrong or a good or a bad, and it doesn't allow for you to just be different. So for example, maybe, he doesn't eat healthy food. So, you went out with him or you connected with him and somehow you found out that, that joker's sitting around eating, fried chicken or, a big old steak with a loaded baked potato oozing with sour cream and cheese, and you're cringing because you eat clean, you're the Whole Foods girl, or, you just watch everything that you eat and you're all about, that progressive next level type eating, and, you're in a whole different space. Well, guess what? Now you've judged it because he eats different than you are. It doesn't mean he's a bad person. It doesn't mean something's wrong with him. It just means it's different. But when you're in a judgment mindset, you're judging it and saying, okay, I'm this, he's that, I'm right, he's wrong. I'm good, he's bad. And it causes you to just kind of nitpick and pull him apart with things because you've assigned a judgment to it. Maybe he likes to go to bed early. And, you're a night owl. So the fact that he goes to bed early, you're thinking, ooh, what's wrong with him? He must be really lame. He must not have a life. Why is he going to bed, so early? Again, judgment from afar because you really don't even know that much about him. And yet you're judging him because you've assigned a good or a bad or a right or a wrong. But when you're using discernment helps you from being picky, because discernment allows you to say, I'm just making a decision based on who I am and what I value, and I don't have to make it right or wrong, good or bad. I'm able to let it just be different. And what that does is it allows you to get to know a guy for who he is, so you don't toss him out with the bathwater, immediately the first time there's something that comes up that's different than you, not necessarily a right or a wrong or a good or a bad, but he's just different and you're okay with that. So make sure you're not leaning too heavily into judge. And we all do it. I mean, we all have those tendencies to judge. I can remember, and my husband would probably cringe to know I'm throwing him out there like this, but I need to help you all. So I need to give you paint a picture of me and my silly judgment self. Thank God I had the wisdom not to toss him out, but I thought about it. So we were at a really nice restaurant, very upscale. And this is maybe our 4th date, and I was really kind of liking him. And then he made the dreaded mistake of asking for hot sauce. Who does that? And I'm like, okay, that's kind of tacky and it's borderline like ghetto. Like, who asks for hot sauce on a date? Like at a nice restaurant. Like, that's for when you're like at, mom and them's house to ask for the hot sauce, or she has it sitting on the table. But this is not the kind of place you ask for hot sauce. And I immediately wanted to judge it and make it a right or wrong. Well, maybe the man just likes spicy food, Stacey. And I had to catch myself. And we all do it. And a lot of times when we're in judgment, not only are we putting a right or wrong to it, but we can get a little petty with it. I know I was like, hot sauce, that's petty. So I want you to be really clear that you're making discernment, which is a decision with absent of right or wrong, good or bad, but just based on who I am and what I value and what's going to serve me well in a relationship, okay? So those are the three things that you can really evaluate to say, am I being too picky? And if your friends have said it and you're thinking, well, no, I'm not. If you go through those three things and you are being too picky, then I want you to start saying, you know what would it look like for me to lean it a little bit more to grace, not be so picky so that I can attract a quality guy, and recognize there's a middle ground. I can hold my standards and refuse to settle without being overly picky that's keeping me from actually connecting with a really great guy. So I'd love to hear from you. Make sure you leave me a comment below. And if there's questions that you have, or there's a video, a topic that you'd love for me to cover, make sure you leave that in the comment below as well. And always remember, be sure to send me the like sign so that I know this is the kind of video that resonates with you.